Hey, gun people. Well, that's a pretty good one. I know it's going to sound like I'm taking the cop's side here. But, there's always two sides of the story. So, you have this DA here. He's a deputy DA. And, basically what he does is he goes out, he drinks. He shouldn't be driving. People told him he shouldn't have drove. He ends up driving. And he ends up going down the wrong way on a one-way street and hits some dude getting in a car and does injury. Guy's got a concussion, some disc issues, and other problems. So when you have an accident with injuries and then alcohol is involved, that's getting into a pretty serious felony. Remember, in law, if someone dies within a year, in California anyway, it's a year and a day. Each state can have their own. But if someone dies within a year in California and a day of an accident or some type of injury or crime or victim, your crime changes from whatever it was to murder or homicide. So that's why sometimes when people get hurt and cops do investigations, even though the person isn't dead, if they suspect or think the person might die, they kind of start working the case from an angle of, this is probably going to turn into homicide, so we're going to do a little bit more or be a little bit better. In this case, it kind of went the opposite. The cops kind of went, it's no big deal. The guy's got little injuries. It's probably not going to go somewhere. We're probably not talking about that serious of a crime. All right, so someone got hurt and a DA hit him. All kind of issues here. Well, let's discuss some of them. So the defense for the DA who was charged with a crime tried to say that they're going after this guy and charging him with too much because he said, the verbiage he used was, the state's prosecution must prove loss of use of a limb in order to cause serious injury. Now, I don't know what state this is and what their definition of serious bodily injury, but serious bodily injury and or death is the key phrase in legal work, and I'm always using that when I'm talking about using deadly force on somebody. What is deadly force? Deadly force is that force which is likely to cause serious bodily injury and or death. Now, what is the definition of seriously bodily injury? Of course, the lawyers are going to make it anything from a paper cut to having both your arms cut off. But the court will have to decide the reasonableness and what serious injury is. Normally, just a roundabout way would be any injury that would cause maiming, scarring, loss of work for extended period of time, possibly long-term damage, injuries that could cause complications later on in life that aren't, anything other than what would be a minor injury. Minor injuries would be scrapes, a cut, a bruise, something like that. So this DA is saying, hey, the prosecution has to prove loss of use of a limb in order to get serious injury. The judge disagreed with him and said, no, the court's going to go ahead anyway and go through this. So this article goes through a timeline and gives a lot of things. This is in Grand Rapids. So they kind of give a timeline, but you got to realize when these people are doing these events, they're given their timeline that kind of meets their agenda. Obviously, the cops messed up here, but I don't know if it's enough to warrant firing somebody, but cops got fired. And cops are relieved of duty and got demoted. So people will cheer. I'm not sure if I'm necessarily cheering on that one, even though they handled it not the way I would. So they had an internal investigation, and evidently their timeline, according to this article, again, this isn't confirmed by the police department or anything else. Let's see. 2 others were downtown at an establishment at night. They were drinking. Okay, two work workers tell him he's had too much to drink and offers to drive him home. How do they know this? Well, probably in the report when the cops did a follow-up or the DA sent out an investigator to get some more information. They probably interviewed the people he was drinking with, said, hey, what happened? They go, man, we told him he shouldn't have drove. We offered him a ride home. So they could have said that. They could have not said. They could have just said They said that so they didn't get in trouble because he was probably out with other government employees. So now they're thinking, I got to cover my butt. I can't say that I knew he was drunk, and we all drive drunk home. So my statement's going to be in my best interest. We offered to drive him home because he was drunk and we weren't. Is that true? Man, truth is so relative. I mean, it's just hard to say. Just look at things, you know, from different sides. Okay, so at 10 p.m., he said too much to drink, tells him not to drive home. And then he says he'll be walking to his mother's house at 12:30, picks up. He drives his pickup truck the wrong way. So this is at 12:30 a.m. Now, this time is key, and I really just kind of reading the clock on the police video. If this accident happened at 12:30, they're not doing the field sobriety test, the FSTs, until like 5 in the morning. Delaying the test is kind of like what I was going to with the nurse that everybody wants. Oh, he said nurse. Somebody take a drink. Going back to the nurse thing, exigency. The body is processing alcohol. The longer you wait, the better the chance the person's alcohol level will be dropping because he's burning alcohol at usually an average of 0.02 per hour. So if you wait 5 hours, he's almost burned off, almost way past the legal limit. Legal limit most places is 0.08. He's burned off probably 1 point or 0.10. So he's already burnt that off if you wait 5 hours. So I kind of thought this was interesting on this is the time he had the crash, and when the cops are talking to him here in a minute, you're going to see it's like 5 in the morning. So Officer Adam responds to the scene. He calls his superior lieutenant. This is where it gets iffy for the cops. Now, would he call his lieutenant for every drunk driving? No. Why did he call him for this time? Because he was dealing with a DA. Well, why should he care, Rick? Everybody should be equal. Look, I don't know how many of you people run around and turn in all your coworkers and everybody that you work with on a daily basis and try to get them either fired or have their license suspended or have them put in financial damage or have them fired. I don't know how many people who run around and say all cops are crooked for doing this, but my guess is most people aren't running around working at the same place for a long time trying to burn all their coworkers or people they work with. Now, granted, they're not paid to enforce the law. They didn't take an oath, blah, 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 blah. We're still dealing with human behavior, human feelings, whether it's your wife, family, your friends, coworkers. Things are going to change a little bit on how you handle things depending on who it is. I know some parents that will call the cops on their kids. I know other parents, no matter what their kids do, they said they'd never call the cops on them. So, I mean, they'd help them hide the body before they call the cops. So everybody deals with things different. But anyway, so when he calls a lieutenant, he tells him to stop talking, call him back on line 3407. Now, this is just typical government. Who's watching the watchers and who thinks they know what's going on? So this line 3407 is supposed to be an unrecorded line. Well, guess what? It's not unrecorded. The cops just think it's unrecorded, but they've been recording it for years. Nobody knows that. Ooh. See, I like that. I like when government doesn't know what the left and right's doing. Sometimes it causes confusion. It's a pain in the ass to get something done, and bureaucracy is crazy. But that's a good check and balance. Nobody knows who's watching who. Therefore, it usually causes people, nothing keeps people honest more than witnesses. And recordings usually keep people honest. So they wanted to call and record a line. Now, that will be argued if they were to charge this lieutenant because he told him to stop and call on it. They would argue that in court as you had malice and forethought because you knew you were going to do something wrong. You didn't want it recorded, and that's why you wanted to go to an unrecorded line. Is that true? Could not be true. A lot of people don't want things public when they're discussing things and making decisions and using discretion, etc. Cops wrong or right? I know all cop haters will be like, dirty cop, they done book me, I hope they all burn. Well, okay, I mean, whatever. The lieutenant was just like, hey, man, I don't want to be discussing this on a recorded line because no matter what we say, somebody's going to review it, find something wrong with it, and try to use it against us. And basically, I just want to have a conversation with you and kind of figure out what's going on. And I don't have a big problem. The news media here in a minute is going to tell you that this conversation was horrible and outrageous. I didn't think it was that outrageous, but, you know, what do I know? People be calling him a Jack Boothammer guy. All right. So there were 5 phone calls made on his 3407 when all these cops thought they weren't being recorded. You talk about hanging yourself. So in the internal investigation, of course, they had these phone calls, and then of course the government said we're not going to release the phone calls, and then somebody sued, and then a judge ruled, yeah, you will release phone calls. So we're going to hear some transcripts and a little bit of the phone call. So the first phone call was made at 12:41. The second is 12:48. The second at 2:40. So we've got a lot of time here on these phone calls. And again, is this a intentional stall technique to give the officer more time to process the alcohol? Kind of what the nurse was doing for her unconscious victim when she was delaying the cop. Oh, Rick, you can't bring up. Oh, shut up. Damn it. Damn firemen out there riding their big trucks blocking traffic. Oh, you can't talk about fire, but shut up, you big dummies. I'm just telling you. You cannot agree with it. All right. So they meet with the prosecutors. People get suspended. People, you can pause the video and read all this on who knows what. And of course, anytime something like this comes out, everybody's shocked. All the higher-ups can't believe it. This isn't who we are. This isn't how. Yet you've got a senior lieutenant, a senior sergeant, and an officer involved in this. And somehow, this is not normal. This is so out of the ordinary. Everybody's shocked. Okay. All right, let's move on to this next part here. Okay, so here was the field sobriety test. And this is about 5 minutes. So I don't want to go through the whole thing here. I'll do a separate video on this field sobriety test, what the officer's doing, what I see good and bad, etc. But basically, this officer goes through the field sobriety test. Let's take a look at some jumps in it here.
Josh, do me a favor, step over here on the sidewalk for me, all right?
He's calling Josh. He's talking to him nice. Yeah, he's the DA. Yeah, is he going to get treated a little bit better? Probably. Okay.
Based on circumstances tonight, I understand that you've been drinking, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm running you for your dexterity tasks.
Okay, this is kind of key here that he says, based on the circumstances, I understand you've been drinking. How does he know he's been drinking? Because at the end here, I'm going to show you another clip where he lets him go and says, I don't smell alcohol. So how did he know he was drinking? Did the suspect tell him? I mean, look, I've been a cop for a lot of years, and if somebody says they're drinking and there's an accident, you do test and you make them blow in a breathalyzer. At a minimum, we call it the PAS. I don't know what they're calling it now, but you pull out the PAS, you have a hand breath, and you get a blow. And if it's the legal limit, then you go and you do a regular breath test, blood test, or urine, whatever it is, procedures, and get the little calibrated hand ones that the cop use on the streets. They're usually what's called a presumptive test. They're just out in the field to kind of give it, kind of like the little baggies that where you put a little dope in it and you crack the little vials and it turns purple. Then you get a positive test. That's not really the real test. We have to take the drugs back and they have to do a real scientific test. Well, the breath test is kind of like that. You blow in a little thing on the street. That's a presumptive. It's usually correct, but it's not admissible in court. It doesn't have as much as the standard testing and calibrations, so it can only be used as another tool, kind of like a field sobriety test, to get a guy in there to actual blow on a real breathalyzer. And they didn't do that on this guy. And I think that's the biggest thing that I think that got most of them in a lot of trouble, is they handled this different. And to me, this guy does not do good on these tests. He says he does okay on the tests. I don't think he does good. Again, because it's 5 minutes long, I'm going to do a complete video on the test. I'll go through a couple little quick shorts.
It's okay? Yeah. Sure. No?
I don't want to. 72.
All right, so you're 43.
A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J.
I want you to notice the swaying here, and I'll cover that more in the video. But as he's saying his things, he's swaying. So let me go to the next video. So in this video, he gets the guy out of the car and basically tells him he's letting him go. Let's hear this creative report writing.
No, I know, dude.
You're putting me in a real bad place right now, but you understand what I got to do, so.
I understand what you got to do.
All right.
Okay, who's with boss?
All right.
This is a nightmare, man.
For sure. All right. Let's go over here and we'll talk away from them and figure out what.
On the mineral side.
This is a pretty serious accident. I mean, he's up a one-way and he's smashed. I mean, this isn't a fender bender where he kind of bumped into somebody or he dented a door. This is a serious accident.
Actually, have a seat. Just have a seat right on the curb for me for a second. Then I'll be back with you in a second.
Here's where the guys get in trouble more. They turn off the audio as him and the sergeant go over here and talk. Now, the sergeant got promoted or demoted for this. Lieutenant, I think, got fired.
Yeah, that's fine.
And now we have the sergeant talking to him, and they're discussing things, and the audio is turned off. Rick, why would they turn the audio off? They didn't want the wind noise. They didn't want people complaining about the wind. Yeah, that's it. So, what these guys are discussing here, in my mind, look, man, he's a DA, you know, he's a good guy. He's going to be prosecuting our cases. DA is obviously the only one that can file charges on us. We don't really want to piss him off. We don't want to start a war between the DA's office and the cops. I know we don't work for him. So they're going through all this conversation on how to do this, and they're basically trying to see how can we word this and do this without looking like we're letting a drunk guy go. How can we word this that if it comes out, we don't look like we just ignored everything. So let's get our lie together and stick to it. And man, I'm telling you, if there had been some senior guy there saying, look, dude, I'm telling you, if I'd have been there, look, guys, this ain't good. We're not handling this like we should be. The guy's drunk. He drove. He crashed. I don't care whether he's a DA or not. We got to do the right thing here. I'm not putting my career. I don't want to be involved in any of this sneaky backdoor bullshit, whisper shit. If you guys are going to do this, I'm out of here. I don't want no part of it. But I'm telling you, I think you guys are making a mistake. Now, that's probably what I would have said. And then, of course, I would have been talked about the next day, not being a team player. You can't trust Rick. He's not down for the cause. Be careful what you say about Rick. Anytime there's a new investigation now, the sergeant and lieutenant would be like, man, we got to keep Rick out of this. Let's give Rick the bad details. So that's the pressures that nobody sees on why cops don't speak out. I've seen it because I've spoke out. But anyway.
Josh, go ahead and step out for the car for me real quick, okay?
This is the whitewash let go.
All right. Based on dexterity tasks and on the scene here, I don't smell any alcohol coming off your person. Appears to be a crash at this point, all right? I don't have enough PC to offer a PBT at this time to figure out what your level is because you...
I don't have enough to offer the terminology used, CST, whatever. I'm assuming that's the breathalyzer test. That is absolutely false and wrong. What harm can come from having a guy blow? I mean, to justify this in court, why the hell didn't you give him a breath test? Well, I just don't have enough. What do you mean you don't have enough? You got a guy at 5:57 in the morning driving on a one-way street that you've already said he's been doing it, and you did field sobriety tests. If you didn't have enough to think he was driving, why were you doing field sobriety test? If you didn't think he was, man, if I cross-examine this dude, he'd be sweating bullets. I mean, this is just a bad move. I don't have enough to give you the test. This is what got these guys in trouble right here. Trying to be good guys, trying not to start feuds, trying not to piss off the district attorney because they're political and they've got clout and they can screw you over on court next time, and next time you testify and they can say you did a warrant, they can make you look like an idiot when you're being cross-examined, and your cases will be kicked back now and your reports. All this internal pressures cause these guys to kind of look the other way and bend the little rules. Now, did the guy die that he hit? No. Should someone have to die? No. Somebody got hurt. They should have done what they needed to do, and they didn't.
You did well on the dexterity tasks, so at this point, we'll get your car towed, get the other vehicle towed, and make sure that you get home safe, okay? All right.
Now, in the future, what this just did is this department just got a blue chip for the big poker game in the future when they're in trouble. So next time the cops mess up a little bit, next time the cops use a little use of force, next time they get caught doing something they shouldn't be, there is going to be a payback that this guy owes them. And now the DA's office owes the police department, and the police department owes the DA, and now we're going to work together, and we're going to be a happy family, and we're going to be able to trust each other, and we're going to be great team players. Yeah, you know what? That's the first step to corruption right there. So let's go to the next video. In this video, we're going to hear the phone calls. And you're going to hear the news media be all outraged about this, but again, I'm not that outraged. These cops were trying to, and I'm not justifying what the cops did. Anybody that thinks cops are perfect, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, cops are perfect, they didn't do anything wrong, I love them, it's the blue. You know, people are going to come here and want to hate on me for that, but I'm just telling you. These cops were like trying to be decent and kind of go, you know what, this guy's the DA, he's a team, blah, 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 and they were trying to tactfully cover this guy's ass without stepping on a time bomb. Because I guarantee you, if these cops had just went, screw this guy, arrest him and do this, the next day, this guy would have told all the DAs, the DA would be calling the chief, hey man, you caught my guy last night, he said you guys didn't give him any type of courtesy help, you were all kind of jerks, you were assholes. The chief would be like, yeah, I'll talk to the officers, I wasn't aware of it. You know, again, the outcome of how something happens always depends on what the public reaction is. Because they got caught, the public reaction is, oh, I can't believe it. Had the cops just done everything and hooked this guy up and took him to jail, there would have been fallout that nobody would ever see. There would be that stomping, that making opinions. We should be working together. We're supposed to be on the same team. How can we trust you when you do this to one of our own? And all those would have came out. So I'm not saying that cops were right and 100%, but I'm not saying that they went out and planted freaking murder evidence and are trying to put somebody in prison unlawfully. Let's listen to this.
Down for us. Dana. Janice, these phone calls you're about to hear are appalling. A former lieutenant, a sergeant, and an officer at the Grand Rapids Police Department.
Oh, these messages are just appalling. Really? Whatever.
Caught an attempted cover-up, two of whom demoted and suspended but still employed. So you'll hear they tried hiding a wrong-way crash. A former assistant prosecutor.
First of all, they didn't try hiding it. They tried covering up the fact that he was under the influence.
Allegedly caused that injured another man, all talking on a department phone line they thought was not being recorded. We spoke with the chief of police today, who says while their behavior is horrendous, it's not representative of their department.
We're probably going to have to. Is there any way? Is there any way we can get around not doing it? I mean, if he's drunk, is it a PI?
Josh is going the wrong way on this one way and hit the.
Okay, so man, this damn computer, this video here is just a pain in the butt. Every time I stop it, it goes to this crap, and then you can't read the damn thing.
And put it up onto the curb and like knocked him down. So he's complaining of neck, back, head pain, that kind of thing.
You're hearing former Grand Rapids Police Lieutenant Matthew Janeski and Officer Adam Ickes debate whether they arrest and report former Kent County Assistant Prosecutor Josh Kuiper's likely intoxicated wrong-way crash. He hurt another man November 19th, 2016.
Who else is there?
Just some other people on the street and some firefighters, just me.
Can we do sobrieties and go from there? And
yeah, I can do that.
Let's pass them. If we can. If we can't, we can't, Adam. We're not going to get...
No.
That's a critical thing there. If we can pass him, they're saying they told him to pass him. This lieutenant told him to pass him. The lieutenant said, look, if we can pass him, let's pass him. If we can't, we're not going to get screwed over this. So, is that really like this huge criminal conspiracy? Look, lieutenant was being what I call an average guy saying, look, we know the guy, if he's drunk, beyond drunk, then let's take his ass. But if he's just on a borderline, do we really have to push the issue? Would we push it for someone else? I don't know if they would or not. Have I not pushed it on some and pushed it on others? Yeah, depending on their attitude, their priors, whether, you know, they're in a gang, whether they're out there committing crimes. Yeah, I use different factors that I know on whether or not to either push the issue or not push it. If a guy's got a family and he's working and I know it's going to ruin his career, not necessarily a cop, if he was a fireman, if he was a nurse at the hospital or a doctor or whatever. If there's anybody that looks like, hey, this is going to ruin this guy's life, he's not really snockered, maybe I can make him walk. Maybe, I mean, you can't really do that now. You can't give him a ride home. We used to be able to just throw him in a car and give him a ride home. But have I done that? Yeah, I've done that. Did I do it with the intent to let somebody go and not hold them accountable? Well, I mean, you know, you can judge all that for yourself, I guess. I don't think these phone calls are like some conspiracy. Okay, the DA's drunk. We know he's drunk. We know we got him by the balls. But you know what? This is going to get us favors later, and we're going to be able to use this. Now, there is one part coming up that's pretty serious. The lieutenant's wife works at the DA's office. And one of the cops says here in a second, what happens if your wife pulls these videos during the investigation? We're going to be screwed. And the lieutenant goes, that won't happen. I'll tell her not to, or I'll get in trouble. That's probably the most egregious thing out of this whole thing that I find, is because now he is interfering with future investigations. He's trying to control his wife who works for another agency and have her compromise her integrity because he's compromising his integrity, and it's just a downhill snowball effect. So that's where the thing gets way out of hand for me.
Oh, I get it, yeah.
The whole incident's appalling. It undercuts our credibility in the community. It discredits what we've worked so hard to create, which is trust and transparency. It doesn't represent the hard work of the men and women in this department.
Agreeing to pass Kuiper's sobriety test, their attempted cover-up goes further. Former Sergeant Thomas Warwick about to ask, what if the lieutenant's wife, who works in the Kent County Prosecutor's office, investigates?
I was thinking, well, if Monica starts doing digging, they're going to pull footage, aren't they?
No.
Well, why not?
Because I'll tell her not to.
And then if she does...
Okay. Now, they didn't know they were on a recorded line. And had nobody else known, nobody would ever know this. So is it a good thing that people know this? Yeah. Have they done this before? Has he told his wife not to investigate? It sounds like his wife might be an investigator at the DA's office. Has he influenced other investigators? I mean, this just... Again, it exposes, which I'm kind of glad it's exposed. I don't have a problem with it exposing. I guess I got a problem with making these cops look like they're out there planting evidence and killing people and burying them in the backyard and keeping the dope for themselves, buying, you know, Hollywood shit that people think cops are crooked. Is this crooked? It's not ethical. It's not above board. They shouldn't be doing it. But are they putting people in prison or planting evidence? And no. Should I point to bad behavior to justify other bad behavior? No, I say you shouldn't do that. But to me, this isn't as egregious as they're making it out. They're making it so egregious so they don't look bad. So people don't say, wow, this must be normal operating procedure. It is normal operating procedure. Quit trying to lie to everybody. It's normal. They do this all the freaking time. Are they planting evidence all the time? No. Are they setting people up? No. Are they out there just shooting black people with no guns for no reason? No. But everybody will jump to that conclusion when you get this. If you give a mouse a cookie, pretty soon he'll come back and want a glass of milk.
Is the lieutenant angry here that he might get reprimanded?
Because if she does dig, I'll end up getting a day or two off, and then I'll be really pissed.
That's extremely troubling, that portion.
Okay, if she does dig, I'll end up getting an IA, and they'll find out, and I'll get a couple days on the beach, and I'll be pissed. Now, this comes back to more pressure. Does his wife want to put their marriage first or the job first? Does his wife want to cause him to have days on the beach where he doesn't get paid and cost them money and take money out of their family? This is where corruption and all this comes in. This is why government power always needs to be checked. And that's why I'm not a huge fan of government power. And I'm always saying it needs to be restricted and pulled back. So I think there's a couple more clips.
The conversation, I'm afraid, is going to solidify any conception that someone may have that the system is rigged against some and rigged in favor of others. That issue is a conversation that needs to take place between ourselves and the prosecutor's office.
All right, so pretty much we'll end that there. I'm almost at 30 minutes. Hopefully you got something out of this. I'm going to go do a separate video just on the FSTs of this guy and discuss things that I see, mistakes I think the officers made, and the things that I think the officer did good doing the field sobriety test of this guy. So that'll be the next video. All right, we'll end that there.